Welcome to this video from In 28 Minutes. Thanks for helping us provide awesome learning experiences to more than 300,000 learners across multiple platforms, Udemy, Safari, and Pact. Let's welcome our lead instructor, Rangarao Karanam. In this video, we would be talking about event-driven architectures. Whenever we talk about microservices, we know that they involve a number of microservices talking to each other. You have a number of common components. You would have a number of common infrastructure related components like naming servers, API gateways, centralized logging, and a lot of stuff like that. And whenever you are going for a microservices kind of architecture, event driven architectures are preferred. You would want to make your processes as event driven as possible. In this video, we'll be talking about what is event-driven architecture and what are the advantages of event-driven architectures. Let's take a simple use case. I have an order. Whenever there's an order, I would want to update the stock, I would want to send an email and SMS, and I would want to start initiating the packaging and delivery requests. One of the ways you can implement it is by implementing a very simple component which does all these together. The second approach, which is typically how we do things in a microservices architecture, is you would create an order event and put it in the queue, and there would be individual services which will be listening onto the order event and doing the appropriate things. So the stock service would take care of updating the stock, the email service would take care of sending an email, SMS service would take care of sending an SMS, and packaging service would take care of sending the packaging and the delivery request. So we have two kinds of architectures. Architecture 1, which is like one component doing everything. Architecture 2, where you have event created and individual components would handle this specific event. Now, how do you make the choice of which one to go for? So if you are in a very simple organization with a few thousand requests, not a huge load, not huge scalability requirements, and in those kind of architectures, you can stick with the approach 1, which is to create single component which does everything. However, when you have huge amount of scalability requirements, you are sending millions of emails. In that kind of a situation, the event-driven architecture might be the best one to go for. Now, why am I saying that? Let's look at that right now. One of the most important thing that you would want in an architecture is it to give you a lot of flexibility, right? So you'd want maintainability. You'd want to be able to easily maintain stuff, and you would be able to easily maintain stuff when you have separation of concerns. And in this specific architecture, you have a lot of separation of concerns, right? So you have an order service which is responsible for just taking an order and putting it in the queue. It does not worry about how somebody is going to process the order. What are the next steps that are involved in processing an order? The advantage is whenever you would want to do an additional step when an order is received, all that you need to do is have a new service listening onto the queue and reacting to that specific event. So this is easily extensible and also easily maintainable because each of these services have individual responsibilities. So you know exactly what a package service does. A SMS service is always responsible for sending SMSs out, whether the event is from an order service or whether it's an update order request or any other request. It knows what kind of events it needs to listen to and what kind of SMSs that it needs to send out. So this is specific and tailored for that SMS service. So you have individual components with specific responsibilities, which is really easy to maintain. So that's number 1, flexibility and maintainability. The second reason why you would want to go for this kind of an architecture when you have huge load is scalability. So when you have these kind of architectures, let's say I have a specific day, I know that I would get a lot of emails that I would need to send out. Then I can create a number of instances of email service which are listening to the queue and processing the events very quickly. The same thing with all the other services. So this is much more easily scalable than the earlier architecture. The third thing is availability. Let's say the SMS service is down or the email service is down or the packaging service is down. If I was using a single component to do everything, what would do typically when there's an exception? We would just throw a message out to the user saying, okay, there's a problem in handling your order. Please try after 5 minutes. But when I'm using an event-driven architecture, I don't need to worry about it because what I can do is I would create an event and I would show a thing to the user, okay, successful. And when a event processing results in an error. When email service has an error, what happens is a notification is immediately sent out to the troubleshooting team, and they would see that and they would immediately fix whatever problems there are. So as far as the user is concerned, everything is successful. He does not really worry about the fact that there was a small problem for a minute in sending an email. So even if individual services are down for a little while, it's easier to recover from that when I'm using a messaging infrastructure, when I'm using queues, when I'm using an event-driven architecture. So event-driven architectures are great in terms of A, scalability, B, modularity, C, in terms of building a lot of redundancy so that you can process a large number of requests when the need arises. They have better availability because you can just create the order event and do not worry about whether it's really processed or not. You can have teams which would take care that all the events are properly processed based on the importance of them. So email service, you'd want maybe medium amount of reliability. SMS service, medium amount. The stock service, you'd want high amount of reliability, because if the stock is not updated, you might be showing something wrong to the user. The packaging service request, you might have between low and medium, because even if the request goes a little later, let's say an hour, a couple of hours, the impact might not be so huge. The other important factor to consider is the performance, right? So for a user, just when we receive an order in the architecture 2, in the event-driven architecture, we would just put it on the queue. That's it. So it's highly performant for the end user. He does not need to wait for all the other things to be done. Those would be done in the next few minutes. That's okay. The user is not waiting for them. So in terms of performance as well, the event-driven architectures deliver the great results. In this quick video, we looked at event-driven architectures, why we go for event-driven architectures when we go for microservices. Why do we want to separate out things and have a queue and put the events in the queue and process them from the queue? The reason is because all the non-functional requirements that you typically talk about whenever we come to architectures, performance, reliability, availability, scalability, reusability, and redundancy and modularity. All these things are much easier to tune when we have event-driven architectures. In 28 Minutes is providing awesome learning experiences to 300,000 learners across platforms like Udemy, Safari Online, and Pact. We have clocked million hours of learning in the last few months. The question is, what do you want to learn next? We are building solutions to help programmers at all levels. You can learn programming with our awesome courses on Java, Python, and JavaScript. You can learn full stack development with REST APIs and microservices with a wide range of frameworks like Spring Boot, Node.js, React, Angular, and Spring Cloud. We have 200 plus videos to help you start your journey from a programmer to a software architect. We have videos to help you learn frameworks, industry trends, including things like microservices. Learn the best practices in architecture, design, and code quality. Thanks for watching. Keep learning in 28 minutes.